Hit the go live button. Let's go live. Have you tried turning your internet on and off again? Yes, I have, and now it works. Good evening, everybody. How are you? Oh, I can see you laughing at my misfortune. Right. Is this? I can see you laughing at my. Yeah, there we go. I hope everybody can hear everybody. Yeah, a bit flustered now, but yeah, I'm getting back into it. It's fine. It's fine. It's all fine. House is on fire. I'm fine. Yes. So yeah. Yeah, I press start streaming and it asks me a million questions. What? Let's see if we can do something about Jan being muted. Say something again, Jan. Do 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 do. Okay, bear with me a moment. Something like that, yeah. Oh dear. Live. Okay, let's have a look. What channel is Jan on? You're on channel 3, Jan. I think. You're on channel 3. I bet channel 3 isn't streaming or something along there. Did the people say you were mute or just none of you? Okay. I think I know the solution.
Me at all, it's through your headphones.
Quite possibly. Hopefully now people can still hear me and also hear Jan. Try again, Jan.
Oh yeah, no, I have a voice.
Yes. Okay, you know what I was saying earlier, I need to get this audio right, otherwise no one will hear you. I got it right now.
Oh, there we go. Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, why is my voice all echoey again? I've
Echo.
got panels in here and everything.
Yes, so welcome everybody. Apologies. Jan was telling you all a little story, and I'm glad it
was flawless.
Yeah, flawless.
I
shall mute you during this story.
Yay, me!
So yeah, I mean, everything aside, YouTube needs to be a bit more accessible. That was really weird. So usually I just click start streaming on OBS and start streaming on the YouTube interface. This evening I pressed start streaming and it said, you need, start streaming where? And I was like, the same place you streamed last week.
Yeah.
Nope.
And then he got all that sorted out and he was sitting there going, oh, the interface has all changed. All right.
Yep.
Go live. You are dropping 50% of your frames.
Oh, it went up. When I reset it, I was like, oh, it's going up. It's going up. 80% of the frames drop. I mean, slideshows are great and fun, but not when you're trying to watch a video.
They're not.
No.
Slideshows are not great and fun.
So, yeah, here we are, and Jan is here, and tonight we want to talk about accessibility. And I'm going to preface this by saying we've talked about it in the past. I mean, we've skirted around the issue. I want to dedicate a stream to it tonight because of an experience I had with a newcomer to a game. My partner and I were watching The Last of Us. I just got The Last of Us 2. I know I'm a bit behind. And we started playing Last of Us 1, and it's kind of that dynamic. She's okay at games, but not great. So we decided, okay, anything difficult, pass the controller back, and you get to enjoy the story if it gets a bit challenging, and we just go backwards and forwards like that. And she's saying the controller doesn't feel right when she's looking around. So on the controller, it's like right stick to move your view around, up, down, left, and right. And I've heard plenty of times of people having a flipped vertical axis, so they pull down on the controller, but it goes up on the screen, a bit like flight control. So I can adapt to those very, very quickly. But it turns out after about probably 20-30 minutes of gameplay, she's still not quite getting it right. So I go into the options and I flip the horizontal, and boom, straight away she's able to control the game. And I'm like, okay. I take the controller back off her for it was a difficult scene by the docks for her, and I started doing exactly the same thing she was doing because the controls were completely flipped as to how I usually play it. And it really got me thinking about the accessibility of games. If those options weren't there, and I don't think I've seen horizontal flipping that often in games, but
I don't think I've
if
ever
those
seen it.
options weren't there, she wouldn't have been able to play the game properly. Just walking around and navigating and maybe passing the controller over when the fights get intense and things like that is absolutely fine. But just navigating around she was finding difficult. And that triggered the whole thing. I think we should have a discussion about accessibility.
I mean, one of the things I often find is games that require you play with two hands or require you play with a mouse, especially with repetitive movement. As I'm getting older, I'm finding repetitive movement with my fingers very difficult. I'm developing arthritis, which is, I mean, it's annoying, but it's expected. But it means quick fire events are much harder for me on the mouse than they're on the keyboard.
Mm-hmm. I have a very
This
similar thing
action
on.
is easier than that action.
Oh, very much so. Because The Last of Us is a PlayStation, and I'm so used to using my Xbox controller, it like comes, mash the X key or mash the triangle, and I'm like, which one's that? Feel the right numpty way. I just don't play on the PlayStation that often, but yeah, absolutely phenomenal game.
I mean, if you folks aren't familiar with Game Maker's Toolkit, he's got a couple of really great videos. One is this one, which I'm going to link in chat. No, I'm not. One is, let's link the whole thing, not just one letter. One is this one, which I'm going to link in chat, which is making games better for the deaf and hard of hearing, which is interesting because it's something that's very easy to skip if you don't have hearing issues. I have mild hearing issues caused by years of heavy metal clubs and working in opera. But even I won't think of it. But things like you really should be putting subtitles as an option in a game if it has any kind of dialogue. If your game has key sounds in it, sounds are relating key information.
Yes.
That needs to be done some other way.
I'm not entirely sure with subtitles. I think in the United States it might actually be a legal requirement to have them, because it definitely is with TV broadcasts. Maybe that's made its way to games. So. I might be conflating two articles I read recently on the issue. But yeah, subtitles. Interestingly,
it's not always required.
Not always required. Okay, so it's required in certain circumstances. Yeah, you mentioned about other things going on in the game. I know plenty of people who play Minecraft, and one of the options in Minecraft is to toggle subtitles for the things that are going on around you. Which I thought was
actually... You can't hear the zombie or the spider or something.
Well, some people play with the sound off. I often play with my sound off.
Sure.
So there you go.
I mean, that's not a bad way of testing your game.
Yeah, is it still playable? I mean, if a jump scare is to do with a loud sound, it's going to fall flat.
But it's the loud sound is not as big an issue as the subtle little hint. Yes. Minecraft is a great example. You're exploring a cave and suddenly you hear that chittering sound. You think, oh, there's a spider nearby.
Yep.
But if you can't hear it, you've got no idea. The other one the Game Maker's Toolkit does is every year, at the end of the year, I forget the guy's name, Rob, Bob, Jim. The guy who does Game Maker's Toolkit does how accessible were this year's games. He goes through some of the key events that happened with things like audio, difficulty. Difficulty is actually a really interesting one because you mentioned that when your partner is playing Last of Us, she'll pass the thing back because she doesn't want that hardcore difficulty spike. She wants to enjoy the game and the story.
Yeah.
And that's a debate that I remember came in very hard with the Souls games, where if I'm not able to play at that level, does that mean I just can't play? And I think that's an interesting discussion because to what degree is limiting the ability to play the game essential to your game? I mean, the Souls games relish in being very difficult, and you need expertise and all the rest of it. But if you're physically not capable of doing that, then what's the solution?
Roderick raises a good point there about the direction sound comes from as well. Now, I have found that as I've changed from speakers to headphones and things like that, I've noticed some games are really, really, really good at sound, and others are rubbish.
Mm.
Metro Exodus at the moment, I heard something coming up, so I knew there was going to be some sort of fight or something going on because I heard exactly where it was coming from. Counter-Strike, the sound in that is spot on. I think Apex Legends has brilliant sound design as well, in terms of directionality I'm speaking of. Um, but Scavengers, which is a relatively recent game, I think it was bigger last year, I just cannot distinguish where people are coming from. And I
Well,
find
he
that a
also
real disadvantage. If the sound's wrong, I can't play.
Rosrick also mentions he can't tell the difference between creeper and rain, which is quite a big problem.
Well, the creeper, I don't think makes a sound until it's about to blow up, which is
Right.
kind of in the name. But yeah, if you can't hear it going tss before it goes bang, you're screwed anyway.
Although, fun memory I just had when I was learning sound design at college. Um, my sound tutor, whenever he had to do rain, would just record himself frying bacon.
And he needed a new microphone afterwards.
Well, I mean, you'd have the mic away from the pan, but most people in that situation can't tell the difference between bacon and rain.
Hmm. I mean, most Foley is all about just faking it. And I've noticed more and more, especially after our recent discussions about Foley, I've noticed more and more as I've been watching films that sound isn't right. That sound's been put in, but it doesn't match the distance you are from the camera. Like when someone cocks a gun or something like that, it's visceral, it's right there, even though that's on the other side of the room.
I mean, that's kind of a whole other topic. The simulation of realism, the
Yeah.
more real than real. I mean, the great example of that is grenades. Like, I'm not someone who
Yeah.
particularly enjoys weaponry, and I don't have much expertise in this area, but I do know that real life grenades don't have huge, impressive explosions that throw you across the room. They're small puffs that have a concussion and shrapnel,
Yeah.
and they just don't look as impressive as what we're used to in games. And also, you don't cook them because you don't know exactly how long they're going to last.
1, 2. I think that yeah, you don't cook a grenade. You're quite right.
Yeah. I think, Roderick, this is a great reason not to go out in the rain. Roderick is saying
Yes.
every raindrop sounds like a creeper. Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, I think the difficulty curve is an interesting one for me, because when you make the decision to make a very difficult game, sort of,
Yeah.
appealing to that feeling of being elite, not necessarily elitism, but like, I am the best of the best. Not everyone can play this game. This is a hardcore, slightly masochistic, super Meat Boy kind of game. Like, it's fair, but it's unforgiving, and the amount of times you're going to fail is brutal. Not everyone can play this game.
I mean, take for
So you're
example, Pixel
deliberately making it
Perfect Jump.
non-accessible.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're deliberately making it non-accessible. Where do we stand on that? Like, I think it's an interesting sort of dilemma.
Especially if you've tuned your game incredibly well to someone who's a hardcore player, but you can't just detune it. It's not just a matter of pulling some sliders back because it changes the whole dynamic of a game.
I remember when the original Wolf came out, Wolf 3D, Wolfenstein, for those who don't know. So the original Castle Wolfenstein came out in the 90s, and
Yeah.
there was a difficulty slider. They did the same thing in Doom. And the average difficulty slider showed your character and was called something like dangerous or hardcore, I can't remember. And then there was a nightmare one, and then below that there was like a I am God or whatever, and you like glowing eyes. But if you went further up towards easy, the easiest one was called Baby and had you like in a baby outfit.
Yeah.
And you're actually being discouraged from doing this. And I think it's interesting because often you'll hear game designers saying, no, I don't want to put a difficulty curve in, or I don't want to make this change because I have a very strong idea of how you should play the game.
Yeah.
Is the player right to say, I want an easier version of Souls? Is the game designer right to say, no, you can't have one? I don't have an answer to this. it becomes an interesting conversation. Like if we're talking about accessibility, are
Yeah.
we designing a whole slew of games that simply don't allow people to play?
I suppose another example, moving on for sort of the difficulty side of things, a few years ago, I would like not maybe over a decade. I've still got it somewhere. I bought myself a dance mat, Dance Revolution. I imported it from Sweden because I couldn't find a decent quality one that wasn't just a sheet of vinyl that would break with my weight bouncing on it. So I bought this, brought it over, and I played no end of Dance Revolution. But there were
Hmm.
some things there that I physically, even after playing for months, could not achieve. And
Yep.
my realization was perhaps a child can do this with their shorter legs and lighter, faster reflexes. But as you get older, your reflexes slow, and obviously you're bigger, so your reflexes are naturally slower because your nerves are longer. And I was just wondering at that point whether or not the game could be made easier. Obviously, you can have less steps. You could slow the music down. But again, it's
But at what point are you not playing that game?
mm,
And does it matter? You know, and I
yeah,
don't think this is an easy thing to answer. I find this a lot with board games. I love dexterity games. Ones that, I mean, each dexterity game is very different, but some involve balance, some involve flicking things. And I find some of these
oh,
much
not
more
like
difficult to
Twister.
use. Twister would be a physical game. You could call it a dexterity game. That could actually be an example.
Yeah,
Is usually manipulating small things like
yeah,
manual dexterity, which sometimes manual dexterity is fine. I mean, it's a game that you and I play regularly. Well, not regularly, but reasonably often. Junk Art, which is a series of
yes,
little games involving stupid wooden blocks, and it's a lot of fun. And
brilliant.
sometimes I'm fine at it, and sometimes I just can't pick the things up properly.
Yeah,
Like I just don't have that kind of manual control. Um, I find there's plenty of games that I simply can't do like that. Like there was a time when DDR would have been no problem. Like when I was going clubbing every week in my 20s and early 30s, fine. Well,
yeah.
early 20s. Um, Now stairs can be difficult depending on the day.
Hmm.
So you'll be able to hop around on a pad. Like
It might loosen you up a little.
it might kill me. But no, it's I don't know what the answer is for this, but I think it can be important to have the question, especially if you want to make a really challenging game.
Yeah,
There's nothing wrong with making a really challenging game, one that makes players feel like their eyes are bleeding every time they play it, and they've got to focus every breath and play perfectly.
yeah,
But be aware that by definition, you're excluding a lot of people.
and
There's
exclude.
nothing wrong with putting
Yeah.
difficulty modes or an easy mode, or what was the there was a very difficult horror game, and then they put in I think it was called tourist mode, and you could just wander around, the enemies wouldn't attack you, and just look around and follow the story.
Oh, nice. That's not a bad addition to a game.
There was another game that I kind of wanted to bring up, which is The
Mhm.
Vale, which I've not played,
The Vale.
um, which is a medieval RPG with no graphics.
Interesting. Like a text
Is
adventure.
no,
Oh,
it, only in the headphones.
very interesting.
So you have real-time combat, but you have to listen for audio cues and decide when you're going to dodge and counterattack and parry. I believe, I haven't played it, but I believe you're playing a blind character who is heir to the throne, and someone trying to assassinate
Wow.
you, and you've got to make your way back. But you're trying to play in that world, so it's not. We've put in this thing where if you're visually challenged, you can still play. We're
Yeah.
not putting this thing where we're dumbing it down. It's like, no, this character is in this world, and it's engaging to play. And whether or not you are fully sighted, you are playing like this.
Yeah. That's interesting because obviously if you were deaf, that game is impossible.
Right.
Completely impossible. But yeah, that's an interesting take on the genre, actually making the
It's a cool idea,
character
isn't it?
making the character that you play lose a sense.
Well, I remember playing games with characters like that, but you as the player had the information the character didn't. So it's really a gimmick, right?
Well,
Or you get like an echolocation thing or something, like your Daredevil. But this is not that.
I've mentioned Project Zomboid in the past on the channel, but So it's a survivor game, zombies, etc. But when you're sort of like stacking your character at the very beginning, you have positive and negative traits that you can pick. You can pick things like, oh, you don't need a lot of food, or you do need a lot of food, and things like that. And a couple of the ones that you can pick, you can't pick blind, I don't think, but you can pick like bad eyesight, and it does reduce your vision in game. Characters fade in and out of your vision much more slowly. And the other thing that you can play is you can actually play as deaf, and then you don't
Mm.
hear any of the audio cues in the game. And you can play also play as partially hearing, in which case you can hear some of the
Uh,
cues in the game, and that does
Roderick
make a
does
big
point out
difference.
that playing a blind game as a deaf person doesn't seem like the best use of one's time. Yeah, no, I mean that is asking for trouble. Um,
Yeah, I can see that being an issue at some point.
but I don't know. It does feel like a very atmospheric way of playing a game.
Hmm.
Like traveling around a game and having to listen to audio cues to know where you are.
Yes,
Apparently, the soundscape is
definitely.
phenomenal. Because if it's just silence and you hear a little bit of running water, that's not that like you have to have good sound design for something like this.
Oh, absolutely. I can't imagine it being any other way.
But again, haven't played it. Just something I read about and I thought was interesting. So
Yeah, so bringing it right back to accessibility. One of the things that I've often, or one of the things I think that most people think about, other than sort of like deaf and blind, color blindness often comes up quite a bit when it comes to game design, UI design. And I was quite surprised. I think it was after the last time we talked about it, I did a little bit more research into the different types of color blindness. And I didn't realize there were quite a few different types.
yes.
I naively thought, oh, there's the red green thing where you can't distinguish between those two colors. And it was very interesting talking to a friend. I asked if he's still here. I asked about his Factorio, not Factorio, Satisfactory. I always get those two confused.
Same thing.
He basically made his factory purple, and obviously to someone who can see all colors, I'm like, interesting color. And he's like, yeah, it's the one I can see. It's the one that actually looks good to me. I was like,
Yep,
oh, that's
that tracks.
blooming fantastic. But yeah, it's amazing how you can design a game and end up being ableist without even intending it.
I mean, the Game Maker's Toolkit channel has a whole slew of videos of different approaches. And one of the interesting ones I don't remember too well was designing for cognitive disabilities. And that was fascinating. Like, how
Interesting.
complicated is your explanation going to be?
Yeah. Yeah, I can see that
Because
being.
you want your game to be like everyone should be able to play. Maybe not everyone
Yeah.
can play every game, and maybe not every game is perfect for everybody. I mean, regardless of disability or neurodivergence or whatever else, like I don't particularly want to play certain types of games. I have no interest in playing Football Manager. I don't enjoy
Yeah.
football. I don't enjoy managing things. I don't enjoy Football Manager. I'm glad you do. I don't. Right.
Yep.
So that's fine. Like I don't. They don't have to make allowances for me to want to play the game. They don't have to put dinosaurs in it, for example. But if someone does want to play the game, it
Yeah,
should be possible for them to do so. And
definitely.
it's not always an easy target to hit, but it's something to aim for. After all, as they say, always aim for the moon, because if you miss, drifting forever in the cold, unforgiving blackness of space.
That's exactly what you want to do.
Is that how the saying goes?
Something like
Can
that,
we
yeah.
shall we show them what we've been working on?
Yes. Bear with me
Okay,
a moment. Have you done
very
any?
early prototyping. No, you've got them. I mean, I've done a little bit of tweaking, but nothing to
Yeah,
see.
yeah, cool. Just let me
Oh,
open up
and
Godot.
Jessica found the website for the Vale. Thank you, Jessica. So yeah, very early prototyping. I was just playing around with ideas. But we've been playing with the procedural weapons idea. So Mikey made a small selection of sword blades and hilts and pommels. The terminology is not entirely right. When we say hilt, we're including the guard and the grip, but hilt and pommel. So we've got these three things, each with multiple versions, and I've devised a system where each one has materials which
Yep.
have qualities to them. And then we've got a scene where we can generate these randomly, and you generate the physical object spinning around in 3D, and then a
Yep.
description of it, including what it's made of, how much damage it does, and what it's worth.
Sounds good. I'm going to show it in a second, but Jan might disappear when I switch
Oh!
sources.
Can you okay that link from Jessica? Because she's just posted a web link, but of course she's not an admin, so it won't show to anybody else.
Bear with me a moment.
Or she can Discord it to me.
I don't see it.
You don't see it. It's right there in the chat.
Nope, not in my chat.
Okay.
Yeah, if you
She
can
can
see
send
it,
it to
just
me.
copy and paste it.
I can't see it, but
Oh, okay. Then right, bear with me a moment as I switch over. We're back again. 2 seconds, because streaming mix. Where does that come from? It's at the
I think I
top,
found the
isn't
thing anyway.
it? Okay, so hopefully now everybody can still hear me. They can see the screen, and all being well, you can still hear Jan as well. Jan?
La 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 la.
Brilliant. I think that's good. People
Right.
confirm in the chat if that's the case. Let's go ahead and click play.
We should point out as well that I was showing Mikey how expandable the system was, and he made a new material. So one of the materials you are going to see is Mikey's amazing material of amazingness.
So we've got a couple of extra things here. Have any of these been pushed yet to the itch.io? No. Okay. Oh, cool. I'm going to turn the audio down that's coming from the game, just so it's not being too much. So we've got a couple of new things here. Preview Weapons is the brand new one.
Yeah, the other one isn't linked on the menu. You have to go to it manually.
So this is obviously very early and will change massively anyway with Godot 4 anyway. But the idea here is we've got materials in the background, and we've also got damage associated with the parts. So at the moment you can see here that we've got this copper color on both the sword blade and the handle. So it's a pure Mikey's Awesome material that is awesome, which is the material.
Right, so there are two materials that each weapon, that each sword currently can have. There's one on the edge of the blade and one on the center.
Yeah.
And they actually have different impact on the value and on the damage. If they're both the same, it will call it a pure one. I've realized I've forgotten to put randomize in the script, which is why this one showed up first for both of them. But it's good because it's a good example. But if Mikey presses space, we can get a new one.
I think I might have broken the code earlier because they're all pure awesomes.
Oh, that's interesting. All right, let's take a look at your sword generator scene. Hot code.
Sword generator scene. So let's go in here.
Can you share your screen with me?
I think I can. Hold on a second.
Because I've got a 30-second delayed.
That is very true. So if I do that, you might hear me twice. I'm not sure.
No. Perfect. Okay, so if you go to Sword Maker.
Sword Maker.
No, what is it called?
Here we go.
Random sword. There it is. Yeah. Open that. And click on the top node.
Yeah, earlier on this.
You've only got one.
Yeah,
okay.
The array size is one.
Go to on your file systems. I'm going to type in weapon material. One word. Okay, and drag all of those through except for template.
Template.
So just use control and unselect weapon.
Template. There we go.
Template. Yeah.
So and drag.
Wait.
Oh, but I want to do it. Whoop.
Yeah, no, you're fine. Go for it.
And pop it in metals. Yep.
Mm-hmm. Okay, now run it.
Hey. Just checking because I can't see the chat at the moment. Can people still hear us?
Roderick says all good.
Good. Nice. So previewing the weapons. Now we're going to have more than one. So this is a sword made of iron and bone. It does 83 damage and worth 38 gold. So all of these are going to be
wood and bone.
Wood and bone.
So already we're starting to get some interesting ideas. And the idea is you can see when you look at it, is this something I want to keep? We can put in more attributes as we go. And maybe a flag for, if it's an enchanted weapon, which would be a very rare thing. But as a sort of first pass to generating these weapons, I'm kind of happy with it. It's very easy to expand. We can make the materials. I mean, the material is a scene. It's in fact its own class.
I love how simple, and of course these completely
read some of
random
these
each
out.
time.
Yeah.
Nice. Platinum
Cool.
and gemstone.
Now, you'll notice on the blade there's the thin part on the edge of the blade and then the main part of the blade. The main part of the blade, there's more of that material, so that affects the value, and the actual cutting edge has less impact on the value. It still impacts the value, but more impact on the damage. So, a steel and gold sword is not the same as a gold and steel sword.
Here we go. We've got a sword made of pure gold, which does 30 damage because gold is quite soft, but it's probably worth a lot more than some of the other weapons.
Right. These values, by the way, I haven't balanced them out.
No, we got bone and wood, steel and copper. That's a nice blade.
It's pretty.
Pure
This is a nice blade.
Wethril.
Yeah, Wethril. It's like Mithril, but it's more inclusive. You're welcome.
All bone and iron. Nice. So yes,
So already we're getting some nice looking weapons. I mean, this is very first pass. The actual models will have to be standardized and changed. And right now we don't have them in the actual game itself. We just have the standalone scene. We've also been playing a little bit with, and I don't really think we have anything fun to show you with this, with how to generate an icon based on two icons and recoloring the pixels based on the material.
I think that's one for when we've polished it out and we're to
I mean,
a point.
I spent a lot of today just playing with the image class and seeing how it works and what we can do with it. And there's a lot of fun things you can do with it.
Yes, the documentation, unfortunately, on the image class.
I mean, the documentation is okay. There's no tutorials that I can find that are that helpful for what I'm trying to do. Golden gemstone.
It's worth quite a bit.
I mean, it would be.
72 damage. That is pretty awesome.
I mean, sure.
That's a very bright weapon.
I mean, there's also things we could do, like if the edge of the blade is bone, it does more damage to skeletons or less damage to skeletons. I mean, there's things you could put in, but right now we're just trying to keep it reasonably simple.
Yeah. There we go.
So yeah, that was a thing that we've been working on. I'm kind of happy with it so far. It's also very nice to see. I mean, we've got 4 hilts, 6 blades, 4 pommels, and put in a bunch of materials, and suddenly you've got, especially as the materials aren't just here's a spatial material. It's a weapon material is a name, a material, a value, and a damage, and anything else we want to add in later. So it actually has an impact on the thing.
It was quite fun. Was it today or the other day? I can't remember. We were playing around with the weapons. It was the other day. Over the weekend, I can't remember. But we've obviously got these weapons being randomly generated in Blender and exporting. So we've got this point at which you could take them out and just incorporate them in your game. You could curate them after they've been randomly generated. But we're obviously going to take that a step further and take those parts out of Blender, and then, as Jan's put together here, is scripting actually putting them together completely randomly with the random damage, its cost. What were we talking about earlier? Was it magic? If it's an enchanted weapon?
So if it's an enchanted weapon, we're also thinking about
expanded. That's the
when
awesome
you're doing
thing.
magic weapons like wands. We could have a system whereby specific material in slot 1 has a specific effect, and slot 2 might be the heavy effect. So you might spend time looking for a golden gemstone wand because you want that specific effect.
Yes, we were talking about earlier as well today whether or not we have the weapon itself, as in the wand in this case when it comes to magic, being the source of the type of damage that it does. So you would need perhaps a fire wand to cast a fire spell. It's not something that the magician themselves within the game would actually know, the wizard. It would be actually down to the thing that they were holding.
And I quite like that. And I like the idea that, wands can be used by magic users, but when you're doing spells, the material matters. Whereas if you're an explorer or a warrior, so you're using the two-handed blades or the one-handed blade, the materials have different meaning to you. Like they should still be meaningful, but it might be, for instance, which heavy attack you do or how kind of damage it does.
Yeah. It's amazing the number of options that suddenly opened up earlier on.
I know. It's a fun little system, and actually just procedurally generating weapons and effects like that is just fun. I did consider making a name generator. It's like, it's not really a priority right now, and I don't know that I could justify spending 2 days just thinking of fun names for swords.
Well, we can outsource that to the people watching and the rest of the community, because that's the sort of thing that could be a lot of fun.
I mean, sure.
We could run a competition, get your sword named or axe.
Yep.
I mean, we're not axist.
Well, I don't mean I'm not saying I'm going to come up with a name for a sword. I mean, come up with an algorithm that can name a sword.
Oh, here we were having Bob-tastic and his Bob sword.
Right. So if it's bone, then maybe Bob is one of the possible components.
Poor Bob.
Oh, no, it doesn't have to be against Bob.
I still think we should have Bob flying.
I mean, we absolutely should.
That'd be amazing.
Yep. So meanwhile, being busy week for you.
Yeah. So, couple points of order. I unfortunately have a child with COVID at the moment, so I'm running around like a house elf. It's the only way I can.
A house elf on fire. Yes.
I felt like he looks like Dobby looks most of the time. Anyway, and also I'm gonna have a bit of downtime during this week because it's been a while since I actually took my computer apart and dusted it, and I had a look inside the other day. There are a few dust bunnies, and what I don't want
actual bunnies.
Yeah, there are 2 bunnies in my computer. No, but it does need a good clean, so I'm gonna take the whole thing apart and rejig it together. So, I'll be down for a couple of days. So if you don't see me on the Discord, that is probably why.
Yep. So yeah, I was bringing that up because I know you were saying that we had to keep this one concise. So if Michael suddenly starts going, "Okay, bye," you know why.
No, I just glanced down at the time and thought, hey, we're motoring through this evening. Time is flying. Well, I'm having a lot of fun.
I also think, and this has just occurred to me, that instead of the confirmation, "Are you sure?" when you quit our game, when you press quit, it should just come up with "press it."
Press it. Press it.
Press it.
Or we could go the Wolfenstein ID route and go, "Are you sure you quit?" Quitting is for quitters. You quitter.
I remember. They did like to try and guilt you into playing that game.
Yes. Yes, they did.
Doom was like that too. Doom and Doom 2.
Yeah.
I'm talking like the original 90s version. Although from what I hear, the remake of Doom was very good.
It's a flow state game. I've got it. I've not played it, as most of my library.
They did a really good job of not making another cover-based wait them out shooter. Because a lot of shooters recently have been about hiding behind cover, waiting for a gap and conserving ammo, whereas this is about getting in close and
very much
bouncing around like a very armed pinball.
Much like the original Doom. What you could play
Pachinko.
Yeah. I remember Doom 3. So this was like the first proper 3D version, and it was a while back. And you know when you start to understand the meta of a game? And there I am, wandering the corridors, and I see an ammo pack and a health pack next to one another. I'm like, if I pick that up, 5 demons are going to spawn, and I'll lose more health and ammo than's on the floor. Yeah, let's give it a go anyway. You pick it up, 2 secret doors open.
Very good at that feeling.
Yeah.
Because I remember playing Doom or Doom 2, one of those two. And being dropped into a dark room like that, like there's a thing in the middle. I know this is an ambush. Goes in, all the lights come out, a bunch of imps run in.
Yep.
and you just mow them down. Doom was very good at instilling the idea that you're locked in a base with a bunch of demons and you're the monster. Like, there is something very dangerous in this corridor, and it's me. I have memories of running down those pig demons with a chainsaw in a dark corridor.
Yeah.
Like, it really instilled that feeling in you.
For me, that was the only real way of defeating the invisible ones. You know, when you come across those, just hold the chainsaw out and let them run into you.
Right. Which, from a game aesthetic point of view, is very interesting. Because I'm someone who hates horror movies. Like, I don't enjoy being scared. I get no pleasure out of it. No, I'm not watching this. But Doom wasn't a horror movie. Doom was a power fantasy set in horror.
Yes. Definitely got a lot of the occult around it, and the later versions even more so.
The horror was the setting. It wasn't the genre.
Yeah.
I do remember that game was heavily vilified around the start of school shootings, but yeah.
Yeah. Moving on.
Moving on.
Political.
Me? No.
We can have that discussion after the stream.
Yeah.
Oh dear. But it is coming up to 10 to the hour. I do want to keep it concise, so I can spend a little bit more time with my daughter today. So, great time now to ask any questions,
Concerns?
any songs,
jingles,
consongs.
Consongs. Do you know why it's called Donkey Kong?
Why?
Well, they wanted a ape villain,
Right.
so they used Kong, but they couldn't call it King Kong because of copyright.
Yep.
So the Japanese designer asked all his English-speaking friends for a word that meant stupid.
You donkey.
Right. Because they wanted it to be a foolish Kong, not one that you're scared of.
Well, it's a very good job that they asked back then rather than what's a good word for stupid today.
Political. Why do people ignore colorblind accessibility?
That is a great question. I'm gonna shoot the first one. I'd say is just ignorance. I've noticed this having family who are disabled in various ways. It's very easy if you are neurotypical, if you're fully body abled. You kind of, it's not necessarily intentional ignorance. It's not malice in any way, but it's the fact that it wouldn't even cross your mind that that would be a challenge.
Yeah, it's very easy to be blind to the privilege you've got in that region. Right? So you're making a game, you're making the code, everything functions, you're very happy with the UI, the critical information is all there, the game is fun to play, release it. And suddenly 5% of the population can't play your game because red and green are critical colors.
Yes.
Right? It just doesn't occur to you. I think part of it might be laziness in the sense that it's extra effort to put in something that you can't see the benefit from. And if you're not someone who takes this seriously enough, or you've not been exposed to it, or you just haven't really had good conversations about it, it may not seem worth your while to spend that extra time testing the game or giving it to people who have different color ranges.
The other thing to that, and this isn't a defense for not being inclusive with your game, but often it requires insight into that disability, whether it's color blindness, auditory problems, or anything else. And so the typical, and certainly in the field that we mainly work in, the indie developer wouldn't necessarily have access to the right tools to be able to make their game accessible. I don't think there's any particular excuse other than time when it comes to subtitles.
Subtitles don't occur to me for a lot of the time. I don't enjoy subtitles in games, so it doesn't occur to me to put them in because it doesn't occur to me unless I take the time to think about it. Is this game accessible?
I mean,
I know one that affects me because I'm mildly on the autistic spectrum is sudden changes in light or sudden changes in volume. Like I can deal with bright light. I can deal with very loud music. I love very loud
It's the
music. But
dynamic change between them. Yeah.
if I go from this level to very loud, I will get disoriented and get migraines. So a lot of very flashy um, rhythm games, for example, those ones where you're driving a spaceship through this tunnel, it's flashing lights all the time. I'm just not doing it. Like it just makes me feel
Yeah.
very disoriented. I can't play that.
And of course, the
Um,
flashing lights are there to give the illusion of speed, but
yeah, no,
for
I get
you,
it.
they're
But
not.
it's
They're not
never going to
doing
get
that.
to me. They might give an epilepsy warning, but it's unless you've been exposed to enough people on the spectrum, it's not going to occur to you.
No.
This is going to be a problem with anyone with autism in my game because it's just as you say, it's you haven't been exposed to it enough. You haven't had the conversation. So I think a big way to get people not to ignore color blindness is to have open conversations about it.
Mm.
I remember way back in the day, I used to have guides for APB Reloaded. And I made fun of the fact that, there's a radar here in the little mini map thing. Not a mini map, but a radar that reacts to sound. And the sound includes things like shooting weapons. And if it's green, it's friendly. If it's red, it's an enemy. And if you're colorblind, you're screwed. And a lot of people got really angry because I got rid of all the colors. I desaturated the image to show what this looked like. And people were like, that's not what colorblindness looks like. It's like, I know that like complete monochrome colorblindness is extremely rare, but that's not the point I'm making. The point I'm making is that's a terrible design choice.
Yes. The fact that the values are equal, so when you do grayscale it, they look identical.
Yeah.
You've got a problem.
Like, we need to do something, like change the symbol, put some other information there.
Yeah. The bubble pop game that you've been working on recently. That was a great example where you've got all of these bubbles. Just adding symbols suddenly made the game accessible.
I knew color blindness, was a thing I should think about. So what I went was trying to pick colors that were distinct enough.
Mm-hmm.
But then people were pointing out, no, that I could tell the difference, but I'm having to work really hard. The moment I put symbols in, those people are like, oh yeah, this game is suddenly really chill. I love this game.
Yeah. And it can make a big difference to people who need that. But I can play happily with it off as well.
Yep. Blue and reds is your world. Yeah, no, that's legit. It's one of those things that I found myself thinking I should put this work in because the essential experience of my game is not high stress. Like that's not the game I was making.
It's a chill game.
Yeah, I want you to feel like you're making big numbers happen through pretty colors. Like that was the idea.
Big numbers through pretty colors.
Sometimes it's enough to watch the numbers go up. Like that's one of the secrets of game design. People like numbers going up.
This is why ammo going down stressful. Bigger number after pick up ammo.
The number goes up is the whole reason for the NFT trade craze as far as I can see. People like the number going up.
Welcome to the modern stock market.
Warning, Xbox's professor has ideas. Blah, blah, blah.
Awesome. I'm going to start wrapping up. Yeah, you mentioned NFTs, so we got a troll.
I
Remove.
find that unlikely.
What's that?
That is the best girls in the world.
Bye-bye.
Yep.
Yeah, I know. Oh, gotta love the bots. Anyway, do you guys have any final questions, interpretive dances, queries,
jingles,
conundrums,
comments,
brain teasers,
canoes,
kayaks?
Yep. Okay, message deleted, bot removed.
Sorted.
Peanuts.
Have I already asked about final questions? I think I have. So,
like twice.
Yeah. So, that's typically British. We say goodbye at least 5 times before you get to the door. So that's absolute.
Some random fact for you. If you look at the teeth and intestines of a panda bear, they are not herbivores, they're carnivores, which is why they have to spend 85% of their waking life eating. because they're not getting enough nutrients from the bamboo.
And on that bombshell.
I just like the idea that they all got together and had a meeting. It's like, I don't know, it just feels immoral. I feel like we should be eating bamboo. Bamboo? We don't live near bamboo. It's just better than meat.
There's lots of it. Look. Awesome. Well, thank you, everybody, for joining us this evening.
Yep. Thank you for joining us. Have a lovely time. Play lots of games. Be awesome. And we will see you next time.
See you next week. Goodbye.
Bye. Press it. Bye. Press it.
Which one? This one?
Press it.
This one.